Instruction Math. Today we're going to talk about creating equations in two variables and do a little bit of graphing. On your note taker, I want you to do your bell work. Think about a time you found a pattern and write your ideas on your note taker. All right, share with your partner, and I'll meet you back here in a minute. So teacher, go ahead and pause the video. Welcome back. All right, our objectives for today. You need to fill in the missing words. We're going to use the equation of a line to graph. We're going to utilize these skills for a real-world scenario, and we're going to find the equation of a line. So pause the video if you need to, and I'll meet you back here in a minute. All right, math check. Two things. First of all, what do we call parentheses 1 comma 2 parentheses? And find the slope between these 2 points. Teacher, pause the video, have the students complete the 2 problems, have them work them on their note takers, compare with their partners, call in non-volunteers, and I'll meet you back here in a few minutes. Welcome back. First of all, the first thing we're going to do is you call that parentheses 1 comma 2 parentheses an ordered pair. And number 2 says find the point, or given the points 4, 6, and 2, 3, find the slope. So let's go to our slate and remember our formula for slope. Slope is, the formula is the y from the second point, y sub 2, minus y from the first point, over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So we were given the points 4, 6, and the point 2, 3. This is x from the first point, this is y from the first point. This is x from the second point, this is y from the second point, and we just plug it into our formulas. I always like to put parentheses so I don't mess up my signs. All right, y from the second point was 3, y from the first point was 6. X from the second point was 2, x from the first point was 4. Do the math, 3 minus 6 is negative 3. 2 minus 4 is negative 2. A negative divided by a negative is positive, so we get the slope of 3/2. And it's perfectly fine to leave that into in an improper fraction because slope is rise over run. All right, once you've got that copied, I'll meet you back here. Let's clear this off. Go back to our PowerPoint. Let's go on to our next one. There we go. Got the same answers. Good job. Now, the one thing we're going to need to know today is a linear equation. And it's a relationship with a constant rate of change. And remember from other videos, a rate of change is the slope. So teacher, pause the video, have the students do a picture or drawing, define it in their own words, and write a meaningful sentence. Have the students share their meaningful sentence with their partners, and then call on non-volunteers. I'll meet you back here in a minute. Welcome back. All right, here's an example of what we're going to learn how to do. Here is Ohm's law from a digital multimeter. If you put in 0.06 amps, you have 3 volts. So any values that are in red, please fill them in. If we have 0.09 amps, we have 4.5 volts. 0.12 amps gives us 6 volts. 0.15 amps gives us 7.5 volts. 0.18 amps and you get 9 volts, and 0.24 amps and you get 12 volts. So we have a couple of things to do. They want us to find the slope, write an equation that represents this data, and graph on an appropriate coordinate plane or Cartesian plane. So let's go ahead and go to our slate and let's look at this. First of all, to find the slope, we take y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. We're allowed to pick any of the points. I think I'll pick the first and last point. So it was 0.06 amps, and we had 3 volts. There's one of my ordered pair. I'm going to pick the last point. We have 0.24 amps, and we have 12 volts. So this is x from the first point, y from the first point, x from the second point, y from the second point. So let's plug it in. So we have 12 volts minus 3 volts over 0.24 amps minus 0.06 amps. So let's do the math. I get 9 volts over 0.18 amps. With your calculator, do the math, and I believe 0.18 goes into 9. move it over 2 spaces. There's my 0, put in zeros, it'll go 5 times. So it'll be 50. So this slope would be 50 volts over amps. Now, if you remember, volts over amps is ohms. So there's our slope. What it means is for every 50 volts, we go up 1 amp, and we just simplify it there. Now we're going to write the equation of a line. Remember, the equation of a line is y equals mx plus b. All right, the slope, this is what we just found, is 50. And I can pick either point. I think I'm going to pick this point just because it looks pretty. All right, x is 0.24, and then y is 12. All right, so 12 equals 50 times 0.24 is 12. Subtract 12 from both sides, so I get b equals 0. So here's the equation of my line. Y equals 50x plus 0. Now you don't need to put the plus 0 on if you don't want to. All right, so pause the video if you need to copy that down, and I'll meet you back here in a minute. All right, so what I need is another slate because it said to graph this. So I'm going to do a quick sketch of what this looks like as a graph. Remember, the x values are amps, the y values are volts. And because they're different values, you can have different scales. So I'm going to make this 0.06, 0.09, 0.12, 0.15, 0.18, 0.24. And going up, I can go, here's 3, here's 6, here's 9, and here's 12. And I'm hoping it'll turn out to be a straight line. 0.06 is here. We found out the y-intercept was at 0. At 0.09, it's 4.5, so it'll be halfway up, right about there. 0.12 will be 0.6. This will be 7.5. This will be 9. And this will be, the last one will be 12. And here's what our graph looks like. And if I would have done a little bit better job of graphing it with a straight line, it would have come out to be a straight line. So that's what a sketch of the graph should look like. All right, so add that to your notes. Teacher, pause the video if you need to, and we're going to go back and just do a little review. All right, so here we go. Here's a little bit that you need to remember. Slope and rate of change. Slope of a linear equation, that's a line, has a constant rate of change or constant slope. Some things you may remember from math class is slope is delta y over delta x. Remember that little triangle is pronounced delta, and it just means change. So the change in y over the change in x. Rise over run, hopefully you remember, and here is the formula again. So whatever you don't remember or don't have on your notes, add it. Now in this particular, slope is positive, all right, if it's this way. Slope as you go from left to right rises, from then negative if from right to left you go down. So circle any information on your note taker that you remember from math class and add anything you didn't. Pause the video if you need to. Welcome back. Now, what I want you to do is see what you remember about finding the slope. So you need to find the slope between the 2 points, the slope from the graph, and the slope from the equation. So let's go to our, pause the video while you finished, and then when you get back, we'll go to our slate. Welcome back. Let's go to our slate. The first one said that we had the points 4, -2, and the other point was -2, 1. Again, we know the formula. Second y, subtract the first y. Over the second x, subtract the first x. So 2 negatives make a positive, so I get 3 over -2 minus 4 is -6. So I get -1/2. The second one, looking at the graph, we have the ordered pairs from the graph, -1, 1, and the point 0, -2. And I want to find the slope. So it's the second y minus the first y over the second x minus the first x. So I get -3 over 2 negatives make a positive, that's 1, so the slope is -3. Now the easiest one is when you get the equation of a line. Just to review, remember this is y equals mx plus b. So m is the slope. All I have to do is take the coefficient of the x, so the slope is negative 2/3. All right? Pause the video if you need to, and I'll meet you back here in a minute. Okay, let's go and see if I got the right answers. Looked like we had exactly the same answers. Excellent. That makes me very happy. Now, in math class, we have two ways we can do it. We remember y equals mx plus b is called the slope-intercept form, and y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1 is called the point-slope form. Most often, people will use the slope-intercept form because it's just easier to remember. So let's go ahead and remember back. Here's my slope and y-intercept. So if I need to write the equation of a line, they gave me the slope right here. They gave me the y-intercept. All I have to do is plug it in. For the slope, I replace it by -4. The y-intercept, which is b, I replace it by -5. And I have the equation of my line. Really no work, just substitution. So add that to your note taker, and I'll meet you back here in a minute. Welcome back. Example 2. Now I want to work this one for you, all right, on my slate. But let's just see what we got. Y equals -1/2 x plus 3. So let's talk it through. Let's go to our slate. Here it told me that the slope was -1/2, and they just told me any old point on the line was -2,4. So I know that y equals mx plus b. In this case, I know the slope is -1/2. I need to find b. Remember, this is an x and this is a y, so I'm just going to substitute in. So 4 equals -1/2, x is -2 plus b. Let's just do the math. All right, a negative times a negative is a positive. Half of 2 is 1. Solve it by subtracting 1 from both sides. So b is equal to 3. So now I know the slope, I know the y-intercept, so y equals -1/2 x plus 3. All right, pause that if you need to add, teacher, if you need students to add that to their note taker. All right, let's clear it out. Let's go back. All right. So here's another example. Just remember, we can use either one, whatever you're most familiar with. So let's go to our slates. We were given the points 1, -2, and the point -1, 4. Step number 1 is find the slope. All right, so I'm going to take y2, and that was positive 4, minus y1, over x2 minus x1. Let's do the math. I get 6 over -2, which should be -3. All right, so no matter which formula I use, I need the slope is -3. Now, I can either use y equals mx plus b, and I'm going to use the first point with that. So I'm going to use the y is -2 equals -3 times 1 plus b. -2 equals -3 plus b. Add 3 to both sides. So I get b equals 1. So this guy would give me the equation y equals -3x plus 1. Now, it's the same line, so if I use the point slope, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, I should get the exact same answer. So y minus the y from the first part is equal to the slope, which was -3, times x minus the x from the first part. This one, the math is just a little bit more complicated, the algebra. Negative times negative makes positive, so I should have put a +2 equals distribute -3 times x is -3x. -3 times -1 is +3. Subtract 2 from both sides to solve it for y, and I get y equals -3x plus 1. Look, it's a math miracle. Both answers came out to be exactly the same. And they should, because it's the same line that contains those 2 points. All right, so pause the video if you need to, and I'll meet you back here in a minute. Welcome back. Let's go back to our PowerPoint. And what I want you to do is work with your partner. There's the answers. Should the equations turn out to be the same if we use different methods? So in your own words, say why they should be the same. Teacher, pause the video, have the students in pairs write their answers, and then call in non-volunteers. And I'll meet you back here in a minute. Welcome back. So now you try these 3 problems on your note taker. Find the equation of the line that goes through these. And I'll meet you back here in a minute. Welcome back. Let's go to our slate. And the first one says that the slope was negative, or was negative 2/3, and the y-intercept was 0, -1, which means the y-intercept was -1. So this is really easy. Y equals negative 2/3 x, because there's the slope, minus the y-intercept. Right there, it was -1. That was easy. The second problem said the slope was -2, and it went through the point 4, 5. So I like y equals mx plus b, and I'm going to put in what I know, because I need to find b. So y is 5, m is -2, x is 4. So I get 5 equals -8 plus b, add 8 to both sides. So I get 13 equals b, so here's the equation of the line. Y equals -2x plus 13. Now the last one just gives me the points. Oops, didn't give me that point. Gave me the point -2,6 and the point 4, 3. Again, find the slope always first. The second y minus the first y over the second x minus the first x. So I get -3 over 6, which is -1/2. Boy, that fraction turned out to be nice. Now, what I'm going to do here is then plug it in. Y equals mx plus b. And this time, just for fun, I'm going to use this point as my point. So 3 equals -1/2, x is 4, plus b. So 3 equals, half of 4 is 2, so it's -2 plus b. Add 2 to both sides. So b is 5, so here's my equation. Y equals -1/2 x plus 5. All right, if you can do those, you're just perfect. The only thing that could make it any more difficult is if the math was more difficult. Pause the video if the students need to complete that, and I'll meet you back here in a minute. Welcome back. Let's go back to the PowerPoint and double check. All right, here's my first one, easy peasy, because they gave us the y-intercept of 0, -1. The second one, we got the same answer because I remember the 13, and the last one we did too. Nice job. Now, for closure, pick any 2 of these prompts, fill them out on your note taker, and teacher, pause the video, have students compare with their partner, and then call on non-volunteers. And I'll meet you back here next time for another math and construction.